Cora is a 41-year-old lawyer. She is a mother of two, healthy and active. But today, she is in a hospital room with a severe headache, a high fever, and a stiff neck. She is confused, drowsy, and struggling to answer basic questions. Her doctor suspects meningitis, a potentially life-threatening infection of the tissues surrounding the brain and spinal cord. To save her, the medical team needs to know exactly what is attacking her. Is it a bacteria, a fungus, a virus? They perform a spinal tap, sending the fluid to the lab to search for the culprit. But here is the twist. The gram stain comes back negative. There are no bacteria visible. Cultures show no fungal growth. If it is not a bacteria and it is not a fungus, what is killing Cora? To solve this mystery and to understand the invisible forces that govern life and death on this planet, we have to look much deeper than the naked eye can see. We have to enter the invisible world.
Welcome to Microbiology. This is the story of the organisms that run our world, from the boiling thermal vents of the ocean floor to the skin on the back of your hand. For the next 15 minutes, we're going to explore the history, the classification, and the incredible diversity of the microbial world. And by the end, we will return to Cora to find out exactly what went wrong. For most of human history, this world was completely invisible to us. We didn't know these creatures existed, but that didn't stop us from using them. Humans have been hacking biology for thousands of years. Take Ötzi the Iceman, for example. When researchers found his 5,300-year-old frozen body in the Alps, they discovered a fungus in his belongings. It wasn't food, it was likely medicine. Ötzi was carrying a natural antibiotic to treat his own infections. He didn't know what a microbe was, but he knew how to survive them.
Across the globe, ancient civilizations were doing the same. In China, 7,000 years ago, villagers were fermenting rice, honey, and fruit into alcohol. They were using yeast to transform sugars into something new, long before they ever saw a yeast cell. The Romans, terrified of what they called bad air or miasmas, built the Cloaca Maxima, a massive sewer system to carry waste into the river Tiber. They understood that filth led to disease, even if they couldn't see the tiny organisms responsible. It wasn't until 1675 that we finally opened the portal. A Dutch cloth merchant named Antonie van Leeuwenhoek developed a lens powerful enough to see what no human had seen before. He looked at a drop of rainwater and saw thousands of tiny moving creatures. He called them animalcules, or wee little beasties. For the first time, we knew we weren't alone.
Once we knew they were there, the race was on to understand them. This period, from the mid-1800s to the early 1900s, is known as the Golden Age of microbiology. Louis Pasteur proved that fermentation wasn't magic, but the work of living microorganisms. He developed vaccines and pasteurization to kill the harmful ones. Then came Robert Koch, who proved that specific diseases were caused by specific microbes, linking anthrax, cholera, and tuberculosis to their bacterial sources. This was the birth of the germ theory of disease. But as we discovered more of these organisms, we faced a new problem. How do we organize them? Originally, the father of taxonomy, Carolus Linnaeus, gave us a simple system. Everything was either a plant, an animal, or a mineral. Later, he dropped the minerals. But where does a bacteria fit? It doesn't have leaves, and it doesn't have paws.
Over the centuries, our tree of life evolved. We added a kingdom for protists, then for Monera, and later for fungi. But the biggest shift happened recently, in the 1970s. Scientists Carl Woese and George Fox stopped looking at how organisms looked and started looking at their genetics.
Specifically, they analyzed ribosomal RNA. They discovered that what we thought were just bacteria were actually two completely different groups of life. This gave us the three domains we use today: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Let's pause and check on Cora. Her condition is worsening. Her muscle stiffness has spread, and her limbs are jerking involuntarily. The doctors have ruled out bacteria and fungi. Antibiotics aren't working. They are now looking for something smaller, something harder to find. To understand what might be happening to her, we need to quickly tour the suspects. Who actually inhabits this invisible world? First, we have the prokaryotes. These are single-celled organisms with no nucleus. This group includes bacteria, the ones you are most familiar with. They come in shapes like spheres, rods, and spirals. Some make us sick, like the ones that cause strep throat, but most are harmless or even essential. Then, in the same prokaryotic family, we have the archaea. These look like bacteria, but genetically they are very different. They are often found in extreme environments, like hot springs or salt lakes. And interestingly, none have ever been found to cause human disease.
Next, we have the eukaryotes. These are cells with a nucleus, just like your own cells. This group includes protists, like the algae that produce oxygen, and the protozoa that can sometimes act as parasites. It includes fungi, ranging from the yeast in your bread to the molds that grow in damp corners. It even includes helminths, parasitic worms. While the adult worms are visible to the naked eye, their eggs and larvae are microscopic, which is why we study them here. Finally, we have the acellular group. These are the rule breakers. They aren't made of cells. They aren't technically alive on their own. The most famous of these are viruses. A virus is just genetic material wrapped in protein. It is inert until it invades a host cell, hijacking its machinery to replicate. So back to Cora. If it is not a bacteria, not a fungus, and testing has ruled out common viruses, what is left? Her doctors find high levels of a specific protein in her spinal fluid. They diagnose her with Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or CJD. The cause is not a bacteria. It is not a virus. It is a prion. A prion is a rogue protein. It contains no genetic material at all. It is simply a protein that has folded incorrectly. When it touches other normal proteins in the brain, it forces them to misfold too, creating a chain reaction that destroys brain tissue. This is the terrifying reality of the microbial world. We have mapped the tree of life, but there are still things that defy our definitions. Prions are not on the tree of life because they aren't cells. They are just complex molecules gone wrong. Sadly for Cora, there is no cure for CJD. But her story highlights why microbiology matters. It is not just about identifying germs. It is about understanding the fundamental building blocks of life. From the beneficial yeast that fermented the wine in ancient China to the mysterious prions that challenge our definition of biology, this invisible world controls our visible one. Next time you eat a piece of cheese, recover from a cold, or simply take a breath of oxygen produced by algae, remember the trillions of tiny organisms making it all possible.